Welcome to Signs of Spirit, your podcast on learning how those in the spirit world communicate with you in your daily lives and how you can recognize the signs of spirit. With evidential spirit medium, Jock Brokas, founder of Afterlife Connect and president of the ASS MPI.
Susan had lost her husband. Her husband was a soldier, and unfortunately he had served in many different places all over the world, and he had taken his own life. And Susan had missed her husband so dearly. They had no children, but she lost a child just before he was sent overseas, and that compounded a lot of issues. So she went into a massive state of depression. She had lost her husband. Her husband had taken his own life due to whatever circumstances. Every day she would wake up in such a dark state. She just couldn't get over her life without him, and compounding the fact that she had lost a baby wasn't making things any easier. Every time she would see pictures of her husband or memories would pop in, it would just start a flood of tears. One day, Susan, when she was on her way to the bathroom to have a shower, Susan smelled this amazing smell that she recognized in her heart and her soul. She recognized that this was her husband. It was her husband's smell, but she couldn't work out. He was gone. It was his aftershave. It was the only aftershave or cologne that he ever wore. But she knew it was him on the other side, and she was quite a skeptical woman. But this made her think, and she sought the services of a medium. And the husband came through and validated exactly that was him, that he was there with her, and that he had managed to manifest this smell, that she would recognize that it was him. And she did, because it hit her heart and her soul and her never-ending knownness that was the right thing. Hi guys, welcome to another episode, another lesson of Signs of Spirit. And as you probably guessed from that story, today we're going to talk about smells. How your loved ones communicate with you through smells. Now that might sound a little bit crazy, and you might question the fact of, well, how in God's name can I recognize the smell and smells from the other side? But it does happen, and it happens a great deal. And I'm going to explain a little bit about how that actually happens. Many times people will go, even before they go to a medium, a person who's lost a loved one on the other side could be sitting in the living room. They could be watching the TV or reading a book. And let's just say that the father has passed, and the father was a gentleman who liked to smoke a pipe, or who liked a particular type of tobacco. And all of a sudden you get this sense, this whiff of a really strong odor of that tobacco smoke. Now, a lot of skeptics will say, well, smells can linger in the air. I mean, really, I'm not a scientist. I don't exactly know how smells actually operate in the atmosphere, but they will say that a smell can linger. And if you bring an external force in, like a breeze that comes through the window, it would take that scent carry on the breeze, and you may smell it elsewhere, or it may not be in one place and then you smell it in another place, and that's very possible. But listen to this. If they're trying to explain that in a scientific way, then it's another form of energy, and therefore spirit can harness that energy, because after all, we are energy in motion, and energy does not get destroyed, it gets repurposed, if you like. And so it kind of bodes well that spirit can actually utilize the energy and manifest these smells probably much easier in your life, or in the material world, than you could elsewhere. Now, if you're sitting and you smell your father's tobacco smoke, yes, I mean, sometimes you could probably think, oh yeah, I'm just thinking of that, or maybe, for instance, I wasn't expecting it, and it was really strong, and I just knew that it was my father, and that's brilliant. In many cases, that is real. That's a way that spirit will communicate with you. But many people, sometimes it comes in such a really weird way. So many people could be doing something, and all of a sudden, maybe their mother or maybe some member of their family liked a particular aftershave, or, as you heard from Susan's case, a particular cologne, and they can manifest this, and then that particular smell will waft through. So smells are very real, especially for those who have lost their loved ones. It's another sense, it's another way, another sign of recognizing your loved ones. Now, I'm going to, I probably should have at the beginning of this maybe taught a little bit about our clairs, or five senses, or six senses, that we have, and maybe we'll do it towards the end and go a wee bit more into detail. But the gift, the psychic smelling is actually known as clairolfactory, and clairolfaction is the ability to smell energies, and clairalience is the reality of sensing that smell. Okay, it's the psychic sense. So one is a particular psychic sense, and one is a gift. And I like to explain it a little bit like this. In mediumship, or in psychic abilities, we have something called subjective evidence and objective evidence, or subjective senses and objective. And basically what that means is it's within and without. So effectively, in essence, what happens is that I will maybe see a clairvoyant image in my mind, and because that's in my mind and that's within my senses, within my own being, that is a subjective sense. I might hear something in my mind, a word, a name, or something, and that would be subjective. That's a subjective sense that's basically confined to within my spirit, my soul, my material being, that works in conjunction with my spiritual senses. An objective sense, an objective way of maybe smelling or hearing something would be to the external environment. So if I heard something objectively, I would be hearing it outside of myself. It wouldn't be within, it wouldn't be in my mind. It would be as if you and I were having a conversation and I heard your voice external to myself. And that would be very clear and very strong. And that's very rare. It very rarely happens. Someone who can see, and here's the other issue. A lot of psychics or mediums will say that they clearly, they see objectively all the time, and they see a person standing in front of them, etc. They don't really, actually. It's very rare. And in some way within our organisation, we're going to find a way of actually testing that, because it kind of gives the sitter the wrong impression that they could see that spirit standing there, but the evidence does not link up to what they're actually seeing. So it's really a subjective sense. And so just get an idea of what the subjective and objectivity is. objective clairvoyance, objective clairaudience, or is really very, very rare. So someone who maybe saw a spirit, and this happens a lot, it happens a great deal when maybe there's particular haunting cases or things like that. So, you'll maybe see a manifest spirit, or they'll see them at the corner of their eye, and that's an objective thing. They actually see it with their physical being. They see it with their eyes. They hear it with their senses, their hearing. And because it's outside, they're utilising the material, the physical aspect of the self to be able to pick up on that audio message, or to pick up on what they visually see. So subjective and objective very clearly just means inside of you or outside of you in a kind of layman's sense. So when we talk about clairalience, about psychically smelling something, that can also be down to you be sitting there and all of a sudden maybe spirit has helped to manifest that sense within you, and so you sense it, you sense that odor, whereas clairolfactance is the actual ability to objectively pick up that sense of smell. That's really pungent outside of you, smelling the perfume and knowing exactly what that is. So clairalience and clairfactor, there's a big kind of argument about it, but or should I say that a professional disagreement. But for me, my opinion, clairolfactance is something that would be objective outside of you, that can be picked up with your material sense, and a clairalience would be a psychic sense. It's picking up that smell psychically and just knowing that it's there. You might not actually smell it outside of you, but you'll get a feeling inside of you you could smell that odor. You'll sometimes hear maybe a medium will say, "Oh, I'm smelling roses," but the actual fact they're not smelling roses outside of them. They have a psychic sense that roses are there, and they're picking that up, and they're basically saying that they're feeling, they're using another clair, which we talk about later, but they're basically picking up that smell. Now, this is a particular easy way, and it's a lot of people will think it's actually quite rare, but it's actually an easier way, I believe, for spirit to first manifest in the physical realm, that you recognize them. If your loved one had a particular smell, and it doesn't necessarily have to actually mean your grandmother, your grandfather, your brothers, your any sibling, or your mother. It could be your dog, it could be your cat, it could be anything that can create that smell that you would recognize them with. You will more than likely recognize them. So, and it can happen at any given time. And so a lot of people will question what they're actually seeing. What they're sensing. They'll think they're just making it up, and we understand that. But of course, it's not, because it is an active way that your loved ones will communicate with you. For instance, let me give you another example. Let me give you an example of a medium on the platform that may actually utilize it externally, objectively and subjectively, and for yourself. You could be, and I've witnessed this, and many people have told me this. They'll say something like, I was standing at the kitchen sink, or I was making myself a cup of tea, and all of a sudden I could smell this amazing lilies. I could smell the smell of lilies, and I thought it was my mother, but I never thought about it again. Now, a lot of people will say, yeah, that's my mother, and they'll accept it. But let's look at it this way. If you wanted more proof of it, smelling it once, yeah, you could get a skeptic that will turn around and say, well, that's actually that could be coincidental, which we don't really believe in coincidences in our line of work, but they could say it's coincidental, and it may have been an aroma that was hanging around from somewhere, or it was carried in a breeze. But what if you smelled it when you were making a cup of tea, and then a little bit later on you smelled it again in your bedroom, And then maybe a little bit later on, you smelled it again, maybe when you were reading. And maybe the next day, you smelled that same smell. That would definitely tell you that your loved one on the other side is trying to communicate with you to let you know, yes, I'm alive. Yes, I'm here. And so what you would be looking at, I like to go on what's called the rule of threes. I look for, whether it's a guide or anything else, I look for evidence in a pyramid scale, if you like, or a triangular scale. I look for the rule of threes. I need to get something that links in with the other thing, and in order to verify that. And that's what I would say to any of you that are looking for signs, or you maybe receive these signs. If you receive something once, yes, question it, because it might not be right. But if you receive it again and again, then the chances are that your loved ones are trying to get through to you, and they will utilize your sense of smell. There's lots of examples where people, and I'm sure you guys who are listening, you will know friends of yours that will say, oh, my granddad he was forever eating mints, and every now and again I keep smelling these mints around me. That would be a way of your grandfather letting you know that he's alive and he's around. Now, in terms of a medium maybe doing this, a medium may be on the platform, and the medium will say, oh, your father's coming through, and your father, I know that he smoked cigars, because I am smelling cigars outside of me. I can smell them strong here. And then they may go on to give further evidence that will back that up. And so that's a way that they'll pick up on that Clairolfactance, or if it's internally within them, they may say something like, I'm seeing that he was smoking cigars, and I sense I can smell the cigar smoke. And so then they'll follow up with even more evidence that hopefully will back that up. Not all of them do, but I would think that they would. So they'll follow up with all that evidence. Now, you can learn from that, even if you don't go to a medium or you don't go to a spiritualist church, but you are starting to... Everybody has psychic gifts. Everybody has gifts of the spirit. We all have them at some level. One of my favourite sayings is that everybody can sing, but just because you can sing doesn't mean you can sing. And what I mean by that is that some people will hold a note better and will be far superior than anybody or other people, and will be clearer in tone and will be able to pick up that music. Other people, such as my mother-in-law, who can't actually hold a note in a bucket and sounds like it's a dead cat. So I love you very, very much, Glynis, if you're listening to this. She can't sing. But she can still happily pull out a tune and go on with it. And that's the same kind of thing, as we all have these abilities. And so some people may have a natural ability to pick up odours. Now, let me go into this Clairolfactance a little bit more, because there's not a great thing that I can tell you about your loved ones trying to communicate with you and letting you know. But it's real, and as you understand, you can smell the aromas that they've given off. You may have your dog or your cat has a particular aroma, or you may have, your grandfather smoked a pipe, and etc., etc., etc. So that's it, and they'll come round. You'll have these two different senses around you, either internally or externally. However, let's have something just a wee bit different from the signs of spirit for loved ones, and then let's look at maybe a paranormal aspect, or even before we go into a paranormal aspect, let me give you an example of Clairolfactance and at work naturally with someone, and this may actually shock you. I want to talk about nurses, and my mother was a nurse, and I'm sure many people out there have a nurses in their family, or medical in their family, or even just somebody who, when you hear about these examples, some people who have a gift of Clairolfactance, which, again, you can argue the point with me if you want, but I want to understand Clairolfactance as something that's objective rather than being subjective, and some people may not agree with me, but hey ho, that's the way we're going to go with it. Some people have this uncanny ability to smell when someone is diseased. You can walk into a home and they can go, oh God, somebody's ill, or and they just know, and you may that person may not even know they're ill, but for some reason they get the flu or whatever it is, or it comes on them, or they just know that somebody's ill. And sometimes this can actually save a life. Another aspect of this is when somebody has died or they are dying. Someone with a gift of clairolfactance or has a clairolfactory ability will be able to kind of, if you like, the spooky aspect of this is somebody can normally smell when someone's going to pass. They have this different type of pungent aroma that's there, and they can tell that person's going to pass. And so this clairolfaction is actually quite a unique thing. And a lot of people say love is through the nose, or you can eat through the nose, or you smell things, and a lot of people that have that ability with that if you like, that psychic ability to smell odors that we normally can't. They can also smell food or anything. They can tell when it's off, or if there's a bad energy around. And that takes me on to the other aspect, which is really, really interesting, is in haunting cases. It's a way of discerning a spirit, or discerning a negative entity, or discerning a ghost, is because a person that may not have a strong clairvoyant or a clairaudient or a clairsentient ability, may really excel with the clairolfaction, and so they will be able to discern probably a bit easier the level of that spirit, or if that ghost is there, or if the reality, if it is a ghost, or if it's a grounded spirit or something like that, because they can pick up psychically this odor, this unique odor. And in many cases, I'm not going to go into negative entities or hauntings or anything like that. If anybody wants to learn about that stuff, we can do it later on. But just to let you know that this clairolfactance is a very, very, very unique ability that goes beyond just a medium, or even a loved one who's been left behind sitting and thinking, oh, I smell my grandfather's cologne, or I smell his peppermints that he used to eat. The clairolfactance is far more advanced, and I like to think of it as an objective gift rather than just sensing it within you. So it's an interesting thing. Some people that are really strong with a clairolfactory ability will be able to sense when a spirit comes into the room through their nose, which is, I find it quite strange, but it is possible. But nurses and people in the caring profession do seem to either have that ability within them, or they develop it over time because they get that aroma, or they just know when something's going to happen through the nose, and that's quite a unique thing. But so don't just dismiss what you smell, because what you smell may not be what you think. Your loved ones could be, as I said before, there's many different ways that they'll communicate with you, and certainly they'll utilize, if they can, all of your senses that you have strength in. And so, the next time that you're sitting there and maybe you only smell once, then you could put it down to someone else and maybe try and find a scientific reasoning for it. But the reality is that if spirit are around you and they want to communicate with you, they will find the way of manifesting that particular odor in many different ways. It's happened. These smells. I mean, you even go in and study in ancient scriptures, whether it be in the Bible or whether it be in the Quran or on Buddhist writings and teachings. there is a great deal of examples of odor and how something would smell wonderful, and how maybe bringing a spirit in would certainly have a high vibration preceding that sense or that spirit or that objective clairvoyance of that spirit. For instance, in I'm going to go back in Catholicism, in Our Lady of Lourdes or Our Lady of Fatima, many times odor, roses or some form of beautiful floral odor would precede that visitation, thus telling the person of sensing a higher vibration. And so those in the spirit world that are learning and that can utilize and manifest and work with this energy, they can manifest these odors for you. And so in the case of Susan, where her husband had managed to manifest his odor, it gave her a little bit more comfort that she could move on with, and she could start to put things together, and she had more of an interest and delved into it a lot deeper. Many people will smell the smells over time regularly, and so they know then that is their loved ones communicating. And of course, if they get it in a validation from a medium, then that's partially good evidence, because I would be wanting a lot more evidence besides just you're smelling a smell. But that's a good way of starting to validate that. So there's many stories of how spirit will manifest the smells and how they'll let their loved ones know that they're together. This is not a long lesson, guys, because there's very little that I can say about this sense of smell, and I don't have tons of examples that I can give you of how spirit will manifest. In the examples that I know of, mediums in the platform have said, I can smell this from your loved one, or the person who's lost that loved one, will be able to recognize that smell and know instantly. Remember that knowing is in the heart and the soul. You just know. And as I said before, one person's evidence is another person's failure. So what might be real to you might not be real to somebody else, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that you recognize, you have a recognition of that sense or that energy within you, and you can accept that as your validation to your loved ones on the other side. So in closing that, guys, a small lesson this week about smells. Please come in and share if you've had experiences of your loved ones coming through and recognizing them through the odors. If you want to look up a little bit more about it, you'll find that in a lot of religious texts they talk about floral odors and beautiful odors. And again, coming to the paranormal side, there's a negative aspect of it. If it smells bad, it's bad, and that's another way that you can move towards being able to tell if a spirit has come into the room. There's certainly somebody with a clairolfaction ability, clairolfactance. So if you have any questions, guys, please get back to us, and I hope that you've learned just a little bit of how that's manifest, and how spirit can utilize it, and the two extremes of sense and smells from the other side. God bless. Well, we thought that was the end of it, but spirit have an amazing way of synchronizing something, and what you're going to hear now is a conversation. Let me just tell you that we were finished, but a colleague of mine had just called, and it just so happened we got talking about the lesson, and I'm going to bring you in now to August Goforth, who is also a medium. You'll hear me introduce him before, but just amazing how it happens. Just at the right time when there was nothing else to say, Spirit brings somebody in to be able to formally validate what we've been talking about. So listen on, guys. Okay, guys, welcome back. And this is Jock again on Signs of Spirit. I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. His name is August Goforth. He is the author of The Risen with Timothy Gray. And August is also a medium, but he's a psychotherapist, and he can explain a little bit better what the senses in conjunction with the receiving odours through the nose, and hopefully it will kind of back up what we've been talking about before. So August, welcome to our little podcast lessons called Signs of Spirit. It's great to have you on here.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
And actually, it's really strange how this happened, because it wasn't anything that we were planning. It just kind of happened to be on the same time that we were recording. So this is working really good. And one of the things that we're talking about here, August, is the ability for loved ones to come through and let their loved ones back here sense them through the ability of smell, or through the sense of smell. And we've been talking a bit about clairalience and Clairolfactance, or clairolfactory senses, and you and I just discussed it a few moments ago, and you've got some very, very good information regarding how that actually operates between the spirit and the sense of the individual here.
Yes, I'd actually, as a medium myself, being familiar with the different kinds of clear sensing, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and so on, I've never really thought too much about the sense of smell, although I've heard reports from many people, and myself too, of having some kind of what you could call a communication, a spiritual communication in the form of a smell. And oftentimes it's so subtle that people aren't quite sure if that's what they're smelling, or they're trying to look for another location of it, like where is this possibly coming? It couldn't possibly be my grandmother's face powder or something that I'm smelling. But what is outstanding and important to know is that the sense of smell is one of our most powerful physical senses, and it is something that is important even in my work as a psychotherapist, that I know, and it's all backed up by science, and doctors know this as well, medical doctors know this as well too, is that a smell is probably the one sense that can reach the most deepest primeval, primitive parts of our brain. Because when you look at animals, like how much they rely on their sense of smell, since they can't really talk the way we can or write something down.
Yeah, of course, and animals navigate with their smell, so there's a survival kind of instinct there as well.
Right. So if we're looking at this from an evolutionary point of view, it means that this sense of smell has been with us as evolving human beings for, countless millennia. So it's a very, very primitive sense that perhaps evolved much more magnificently and clearly than the sense of hearing or the sense of sight. That smell is really something that even works in the dark when we can't see, or it works when we can't hear. It still is there as a navigational aid. So it also is directly connected to those synaptic areas of the brain, and the primitive part of the brain, that allow us to retrieve memories. And so smells often can trigger a memory that has been long forgotten, or a memory that was of an experience that we had as a child before we even formed verbal language in our brain. And suddenly we get this smell 50 years later or 30 years later, and it's disturbing to some people. Are saying, what is this smell? Because smells also activate emotions and feelings,
and that's a good why when someone's lost a loved one and they have that aroma that comes over them. For instance, they smell, it could be a an aftershave of a husband, or even the pipe that the grandfather smoked, and it activates that memory within them, and that's how they manage to recognize deep within themselves that that's their loved one.
Right, but also the memory itself encodes emotions, and emotions, which are feelings, carry messages. That's exactly what, so as a psychotherapist, that's what I teach my patients is so many people are cut off from their feelings, mostly from the overwhelming amount of stress and fear on the planet today. And so people are afraid to feel their feelings, but I teach them you must feel the feelings because feelings carry messages. That feelings come from our body. And while our minds are thinking, our belief systems may lie to us or make things up or try to rationalize things, our feelings, which come from our bodies never lie to us. So, for example, if we're meeting someone and our body doesn't like them, but our mind says, oh no, this seems like a really nice person and everyone likes them, but our body is feeling something different. Our body is telling us the truth of what's going on. So feelings are always bringing us messages of truth, and these messages of truth is what spirit wants to get through. And they will use something like smell, which can carry so many encoded messages within the feeling from the memories that they activate. So you can see how deeper we're getting into it already. That it's very sophisticated. That if spirit can utilize smells, they will. And that's the problem then is that smell is probably so unique to that person that even if someone else in the same room could smell it, it wouldn't mean anything to them. It would have no meaning. There would be no message carried to them by the smell. So it's private.
That's a very interesting point, because that's something that I said at the beginning, is that these smells are, you would know them. You know, it basically it's within your heart and within your soul, and it's a deep knowing that's connected to your loved one because you're the only one that recognizes them. And that's exactly, you know what you're saying, because another person's, and as I said, one person's evidence is another person's failure, and that evidence is personal to them.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it because smells are also very hard to describe. Like we don't have a language of smells as much the way that maybe animals might, but smells also involve chemistry. Our bodies are chemical factories. The feelings come from chemicals. We now know what psychotherapists and probably all kinds of different healers and shamans have been trying to tell Western science anyway for hundreds of years, is that our thinking creates our experience of the world and literally manifest our world in that way. So now I could put you into what's called an fMRI, an MRI machine that doesn't just take photographs, but it actually scans you in real time. So the technician is looking at you through a camera, but it's seeing it in real time. It's just not taking snapshots of it. So I could stick you into an fMRI machine and give you a cognitive task that involves making you feel certain things. So I would say, for example, go to the place, that made you most happy when you were a child. And you say, wow, that was the carnival or the circus, and the smell of the cotton candy and the peanuts and the hot dogs and the dirt and the elephants, and all that smell is just so olfactorily sensate for me. And
that would be almost a subjective feeling rather than it being objective in that moment. It would a subjective within you that you bring this emotion up because of that memory.
Right. And so we would have you hooked up to all kinds of sensing devices, recording devices while you're in this machine. You're not actually at the circus, but immediately we would start seeing parts of the brain glow or activate according to the way the computer maps this out of certain areas of the brain that are tuning into these memories. And that's a whole nother discussion about whether memories are contained in the brain or outside of the brain. But you're activating these memories and remembering them. And then we will see, if we have you hooked up to the right things, your brain will start flooding your body with a very specific chemistry that's related that was activated by thinking about the circus. And that chemistry would be exactly the same as if we hooked you up while you were at the circus. So this means the brain can't tell the difference between reality and virtual reality. It's the same for them. So now we know that our thinking actually is directly related to the way we feel. And so it's all like spectacularly in this almost like hologram. Everything contains a little bit of everything else. So when you're getting a smell activated by spirit, it's my understanding so far that they are using some kind of chemistry
to manifest it
in some kind of a way.
Yeah.
They're using their own chemistry, like you have two separate chemicals that are inert when they're apart, but when you bring them together, they activate each other in a mysterious way. Science still doesn't quite understand. So maybe the spirit people are bringing their own chemistry to us as well, and they're adding their chemicals to the chemistry of our body to enhance our experience. And you have what is usually called a numinous experience, which is not a phenomenal experience, but a numinous experience, which is very hard to explain or put into words. It's so private, it's so intimate, but spirit knows how to activate this through their own expertise on chemistry.
Do you know, it's absolutely fascinating, August, because when, both you and I as a medium, I mean, you're very lucky you understand it from your psychotherapy understanding point of view, but there's so many mediums out there, and even myself, only understand it to a certain level, to that level of the spirit senses, or understanding the subjective and the objective side of it. But it's amazing to think that we don't even seem to have many examples of it, but it's actually probably one of the strongest evidentiary, scientifically based experiences that we probably need to delve into a little bit more and try and understand it a little bit more.
Well, most likely it probably has the greatest scientific value for those people in spirit, that their sciences, their technology are so vastly different and advanced beyond our own that we wouldn't even be able to understand. I've seen some of it, and there's no way that, even though I can see it clairvoyantly, what their technology is in certain levels, I could not find words to explain it to you. I couldn't even draw it. So right now we kind of rely on our most primitive but most reliable senses, which would be the sense of smell, because it takes us back to our primitive roots of who we are. And so probably in a darkened sitting room, a spirit chemist would be able to see everyone in the room lighting up by the chemistry going through their body, and knows how to change that and manipulate it as well, and also see when people are afraid and see when people are happy. These are things we can't see yet, but we can certainly smell happiness, we can smell fear, we have a way of smelling emotions, and so they use smell in very subtle ways usually. It doesn't take very much. It only takes a few tiny little molecules of a certain chemical to get into our nose, and it activates all these brain sensations, which activates all these memories. And sometimes the memory will bring us knowledge or answers that we were looking for. So it can't be underestimated.
It is. It's awesome to actually hear it from a psychotherapist's point of view and a scientific point of view, and not just from a medium's point of view, because we get to, and certainly I understand it a little bit better now from that science, and I think it goes a long way. We're all getting educated to it, and it's something that we should not take for granted. And one of the things I've said is that, certain things, you can sit there and you can smell once, and maybe that could be coincidental, or maybe it could be an aroma that's held in the air. But when spirit are around, it'll be something that they'll give it to you a number of times, and because they're able to see that and get that message over. August, thank you very much for jumping in with us, and I hope that I can get you back on. There's a lot more lessons that we're going to be doing, and I'd love you to come back on and chat again. Do you want to let everybody know a little bit about your book, because you've written The Risen, and a lot of people know about it, but tell others about it and how they can get a hold of your book.
You can find it just by Googling my name, August Goforth, or it's called The Risen, which is the short title. The long title is Dialogues of Love, Grief, and Survival Beyond Death, 21st century reports from the afterlife through contemplative, intuitive, and physical mediumship. And so that means that my mediumship is described, I'm a contemplative medium, which you don't hear too much about. I'm also an intuitive medium, and I have some physical mediumship attributes as well. So the book took about eight years to write. I wouldn't say it was channeled. It was intuited, and it was introduced to me by my friend and my partner Tim Gray, who has been in Spirit for over 20 years now, who came and asked me and said Spirit would like us to write a book, because Tim was involved in publishing and he was an editor on Earth for many years when I was as well too. So we're both very words people. So Spirit thought we have this strong relationship. Tim had actually come to me shortly after he transitioned. A couple years later, he manifested to me in some very stunning physical manifestations, and that was their way of saying, if your love is that strong and you're able to put your wordsmiths as well and you're good writers, so we want to use you. So Spirit asked us to write a book, and this is the book that came out of it. So it's not a book for beginners. There are lots and lots of books, good and not so good out there for people who are interested in mediumship. It's not mediumship for dummies. It's not astral traveling 101. It's really for people who are much more knowledgeable about the various forms of mediumship.
And it raises, I think it raises a lot of questions within you and within the whole experience. It's a book where if you're going to delve deeper and challenge yourself, that's certainly one to do.
Well, it's kind of activated. It's written. It has this kind of vibration that will activate spiritual senses in the reader that they didn't know that they had. And it's meant to activate these senses in a way that you feel certain emotions. And with emotions, as I said before, come messages and feelings. And so there's knowledge that it activates in the person. So the book isn't there so much as to tell you this is the way it is or is not. It's there to stimulate you to figure it out for yourself. It's it's a teaching book in that way. And so it provides a lot of stimulating, weird questions and ideas, and a lot of people really love and others really hate. Everyone has a different kind of relationship with the book, but so far it's been. I'm happy with its success so far.
Well, I tell you what we need to do is. August is also going to be writing for our ASSMPI magazine, and so you'll be able to follow him with various articles. But one of the things that we need to do, August, is for other people that are listening that are members of Afterlife Connect, is we need to get you on Afterlife Connect so that you can put your link in your book up there. And yes. Let's do that as soon as possible and get you in there, and people can start to maybe have connection with you through there, and I'll introduce you to that, and we'll get your book up there for everybody. But as I said, August won't be a stranger. We'll have him back on, and also you'll be able to follow him on the Other Side Press, which is our magazine from the ASSMPI, which has gone through numerous changes recently, and now we've found our feet, and so we're moving forward with that. Again, August, thank you very, very much for coming on Signs of Spirit, and anybody who wants to find out more about him, you'll be able to find them on the Other Side Press. You'll be able to find them on Afterlife Connect very soon. And what's your website, August? You just Google your name, or do you have a website?
Yeah, it's easier just to Google my name. No one else comes up. So yeah, and then people are feel free to. I think there's a way to email me there. I try to answer as many emails as I can.
Absolutely. And we'll do that on the Other Side Press as well. People can ask you questions and you can respond to them and etc. And there you have it, guys. This is we're very lucky to have August here to have called for him and I to speak today, and it's great to have another viewpoint and another knowledge, a deeper knowledge of how this actually works within a scientific realm. And I'll be looking forward to speaking to August again in the very near future. And thank you again, and God bless everybody. Well, guys, that's the end of this week's lesson, and I want to thank August again for being the guest, even though we haven't even planned it, so that was orchestrated by a higher power. And I hope that you all enjoyed it and got something from it. I also learn when I speak to other people, and it's really exciting how we can all learn constantly, all the time, developing our knowledge. Next week is going to be exciting. It may be quite a long one. We're talking about vibration and how vibration works and how vibration works within the spirit world and those communicating with you on the other side. So if you want to learn more about August or get his books, then, you know, check him out on Afterlife Connect when he gets on there, or the Other Side Press, and look after yourselves. God bless.